Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, or even good morning, depending upon where you are. Today we will be looking at a video by a very well-known YouTube young Earth creationist about the name of Nephilimfrees, who recently released a video entitled Exoplanets. Now, my plan is to kind of go through this video and try and correct the mistakes that Nephi made, and there's so many of them. So many of them. Now, this is going to be a very painful process, and I do apologize to all of you in advance, and I hope that you will bear with me as I pick apart his garbage one step at a time.
Well, the more we learn about our universe, the more we find that the secular theories about how stars formed, how galaxies exist and how they formed, and how our solar system formed and why it exists, are just a huge package of just-so stories that don't work. Here's an article from NASA talking about rogue planets. Guess what they've discovered? They think free-floating planets may be more common than stars. Now, the secular camp's theory about how our solar system and how planets form has long been established. They believe that an accretion disk left behind by an exploding star...
Oh, hang on a second there, Nephi. I hate to break it to you, but solar systems are not produced by exploding stars. I'm afraid that there is no accretion disk after a star explodes, but there may well be a nebula. It's called a supernova remnant. Lots of gas and dust, you know, from an exploding star and the planets that it destroys. And I don't know if you've taken a look around, Neph, but our star looks pretty intact and unexploded to me.
It's coalesced into a disk-like mass, and this coalesced then into planets orbiting the center remnant of that exploded star, and this is how our solar system formed.
What? Hang on. Right, so let me get this straight, Nephi, Sporty. You believe that a star explodes, an accretion disk forms, and then planets form around the remnants of the exploded star somehow. Well, apart from that method of stellar and solar system formation being a perfect reason for there being so many rogue planets out there, it's completely incorrect. Let me educate you. We are now going to go back to high school, Nephilimfree, and we are going to do Astronomy 101. This is a nebula. This particular nebula is the Eagle Nebula. Very beautiful, isn't it? Each one of those little pink dots is a star. I can't see any exploded ones there, but trust me, when you see an exploded star, you'll know it. They're kind of hard to miss. These nebula are made up of gases, hydrogen mostly, and there's lots of dust in there as well. And they're not these uniform clouds. They have denser regions, they have light regions, they have currents, they have eddies. Okay? Now what happens is, one of these denser regions will start to undergo gravitational collapse, because the area in that area, the pressure has become so high in one region that it starts collapsing in on itself. And this collapse means that its mass increases, and this means that its gravity increases, which means it pulls in more material from the surrounding area. And this goes on and on and on and on and on until it reaches a critical mass. At that point, that super dense region of this nebula begins to fuse hydrogen atoms together, which sets off a chain reaction which gives birth to a star. Now, during this process, a spin or rotation is imparted to this dense area of gas, which creates the accretion disk around the star. So, yeah, I don't entirely understand where you're getting the concept that stars explode and then keep on being stars. and somehow miraculously form planets around this star that exploded but didn't. Yeah, this is just more proof that you are not qualified to even be doing a commentary on this.
But now they think that free-floating planets, which have no star that they orbit, may be more common than stars. The discovery indicates that there are more free-floating Jupiter-mass planets than can be seen. The team estimates there are about twice as many of them as there are as stars. In addition, these worlds are thought to be at least as common as planets that orbit stars. This adds up to hundreds of billions of lone planets in our Milky Way galaxy alone. Go figure. Wait a minute. I thought planets were created from an accretion disk. A star explodes.
Now, you see, if you had only said a star explodes, thus forming a solar system, if you had said that once, I might have chalked it up to you stumbling over your words. But, this is like twice, 3 times, maybe twice, which just goes to show the fact that you don't even have the slightest idea of what you are talking about. How someone can believe that a exploding star will create a solar system is beyond me. Even kids can grasp that concept, and yet somehow you are unable to.
Material ejects from it in a disc shape instead of a flat shape, a spherical shape. And then this hot
WTF? A flat explosion. Okay, Nephi, you tell me where you have ever in your life seen a flat explosion that spreads out like this. It goes everywhere. That's what an explosion is. Okay, when a sun goes supernova, it creates a spherical shell around its remnant, which we call a supernova remnant. You can see pictures of them. Look, here's one. Does that look flat to you? Oh, hang on a second. I'm sorry, this is a 2D picture, obviously. And you're going to say, oh no, look, that's flat.
material coalesces into planets, which orbit that remnant of the star, the center of it, what was left. I thought that's how solar systems formed, how our solar system formed. But maybe not. Maybe there are just lots of free-floating planets out there that weren't created by any accretion disk at all.
That's correct, Nephi. Planets are formed in the accretion disk. The particular planets that the articles you are reading about in regards to rogue planets, the particular planet types they are referring to, are usually gas giants. Now, gas giants form in the colder parts of a solar system as the accretion disk condenses into the planetary bodies. During the formation of these planets, any number of things can go wrong, because the creation of a solar system isn't this majestic, peaceful event, it is a violent turmoil. Planets slam into planets. Planets fly by each other and knocking them out of their orbits, sending them flying off into space. I do have an interesting hypothesis of my own, however, and that is that gas giants, at least from what I understand of science and physics, and I could be wrong, but I believe that it might be possible for gas giants to form inside nebula. Again, this is my own personal hypothesis. They would undergo relatively the same process as the formation of a star would. A denser pocket of the nebula would collapse in on itself, gain more mass, pull in more matter, and however, for whatever reason, the gas giant, or the forming gas giant, does not gain enough mass to become a star and floats off into the galaxy on its own. As I said, that is just a hypothesis. I don't know whether that is actually possible or not, but it's a little idea I like to entertain, and it certainly makes a lot more sense than the crap you spew.
How do you explain that with your evolutionist presumptions about the origin of things in our universe? See, it doesn't work. The more we discover that the secular theories about our solar system and galaxies and planets, none of it works. It just doesn't work, because we constantly find a body of evidence that refutes their assumptions. Now here's more. First planets around Sun-like stars in a cluster. This is from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, California Institute of Technology. They state now that they've discovered that there are suns that orbit each other in kind of a strange rotational pattern that don't rotate around anything. They just rotate around each other.
Congratulations, Nephilim. You have just discovered what we call a binary star system. And they are indeed very curious, and we don't fully understand them yet. However, there are some facts that we are aware of about most binary stars. In most binary star systems, one star is larger than the other. But in all binary star systems, they do revolve around a center point, which is defined by gravity. Not by a physical object, but by the gravitational attraction and forces that these stars subject each other to. Here is a short little video. Now, as you can see in this video, this is how a binary star system's orbit works. It's fascinating, to be perfectly honest with you. Absolutely brilliant that this has been discovered. I mean, science fiction has hypothesized for a great deal of time that these sorts of systems can exist, and it's only just recently that we have actually discovered them and seen them for ourselves. But, hey, gravity's only a theory, right?
And they've got planets flying around there. Kind of doesn't match any of the models that the secular camp has for the origin of things in our universe, does it? They're constantly discovering more and more strange things that contradict the secular theories about how everything came into being. But this is the funniest of all. They state, there may be more Jupiter-sized planets than stars. Free-floating, just floating off around through space, not orbiting any sun, any star. How'd they come into being? Well, here's what they claim. Oh, they've got to have a just story for that, right? Well, here it is. Another body comes flying through the solar system of that star planet, and because of its gravitational pull, it causes that planet to get pulled out of orbit, ejected from the solar system, and hurled off into space. Does that make any sense to you?
Really? This is just painful. Oh. No, Neph, it makes absolute perfect sense. And I know later on, you're going to turn around and you say, do you realize the amount of energy that it takes for this to happen? Yes, Neph, we're well aware of the amount of energy it takes to fling a planet out of its orbit into the deep black void of space, which is why it is such a phenomenal event. And it is perfectly possible. Unlike how you say where it would only swing it out into a more elliptical orbit, or some such garbage. It entirely depends upon the mass of the body that comes near to our solar system as to the effects that it will have. As I have mentioned earlier, the greater the mass, the more gravity, and thus the greater the effect it will have on any nearby bodies. In this case, we're talking about planets that are on the far extremes of their solar system, very far out, having a very small influence of their sun's gravity exerted upon them. Now, let's say something the size of, I don't know, Jupiter comes skirting across our solar system, straight past one of these small planets on the outward fringes of a solar system. You think that its already massively elliptical orbit is going to become even more elliptical? No. The gravity of its own sun is so weak at this distance that, you know, it's going to be pulled out of its orbit by this planet that's passing by. And it's going to shoot off into space. You have to have a basic understanding of these things in order to be able to do an intelligent commentary on them, Nephilim. And you don't have a basic understanding of astronomy, you don't have a basic understanding of physics, you don't have a basic understanding of anything, from what I can tell. So yes, a body coming through our solar system, or a solar system, or passing nearby, can have that effect of pulling the planets further out of their orbit and flinging them off into space. Gravity's a violent thing out there. Now, you think that the universe is this neatly ordered and structured place? No! It's chaos out there. It's a dangerous place. And a lot of these planets, these rogue planets, will have been pulled out of their orbits a long time ago, when the galaxy was an even more dangerous and violent place as our solar systems were just starting to form. Planets literally can pull each other out of orbits. I mean, we have now in our solar system achieved a sort of equilibrium. However, in the early periods of the formation of our solar system, it wasn't so. There was rocks flying around, planets slamming into each other. Some planets would whip smaller planets off into space. Some planets would cause other planets to crash into the sun. It was a violent place, Neph.
No, and it really doesn't make any sense to them either. But they have to have some story to explain it away. And this is the only thing they can think of. What else could explain them? They had to have formed in a solar system, in a galaxy, right? I mean, a solar system with an accretion disk, right? They had to have been orbiting a sun, a star, right?
No, Nephilim. As I have explained, some of these rogue planets could easily have been formed in nebula. You should know this. Obviously you do, don't you? I mean, come on, you are commentating on a topic that you... Well, who am I kidding? You're commentating on a topic you don't know enough about. In fact, I don't think you know anything about it.
So, that means they got pulled away from it and thrown off into outer space. That's what they have to believe. If they stick to their paradigm, their idea that planets are formed from an accretion disk, remnant of a blown-up star. So, they claim that these things just were ejected off into space. But that doesn't make any sense, does it? What do you think really would happen if a gravitational force of some planet came close enough to another planet to kind of move its orbit? Would it just cause that planet to be ejected off into outer space? No, it would not. Even a layperson who is not an astronomer can see the absurdity of that.
No, Nephi. A layperson who is not an astronomer would be able to understand perfectly well how a passing planet could pull another planet out of its orbit and toss it off into space. But you're not a layperson. You're just an idiot.
At most, it would cause the planet's orbit to change to a strange ellipse, but it would not pull it away from the larger mass, which is the star it supposedly orbits, right? No, it wouldn't steal it away from the star. At best, it would change its orbit some into a pretty wild orbit, probably. Maybe a strong ellipse. Wouldn't steal it away. Come send it flying off into space. Do you realize the energy required for that?
Yep.
It's nuts. These theories don't work because there's no common sense to them.
Nephilim, the universe is not ruled by common sense. It is ruled by physics. Okay? Common sense does not apply to planets, it does not apply to galaxies, it does not apply to the universe. What we consider common sense, we cannot apply to the rest of the universe. It has its own laws. Common sense is applied by people who have brains and intelligence. The laws of physics, if they were common sense, everyone would know them. Everyone would be a master at physics if the laws of physics were common sense. They're not common sense. You have to learn them and you have to understand them.
There's not even any physics that works for them. But they've got to have something, because they have to say that it formed on its own. That there was no creator for the universe, and that God didn't create anything. And that's why none of their theories work, because they're going against the truth, which is creation. Just thought I'd share this with you. Just one more of the countless evidences that refute the secular ideas about the origin of our universe and our solar system and our galaxies. You can study their models and you'll find nothing but holes. Well, we can't explain how such and such, but it happened. And then they have to make up some wacky idea, like a big body comes flying through a solar system, a solar system, and causes a planet to become ejected and fly off through space. Well, even if that were so, listen to what they say. The team estimates there are twice as many of them as stars. That would mean there would have to have been in the past an unbelievable amount of planets orbiting suns that got slung off into outer space. Can you see that? Why don't we see any of these today? If there were so many solar systems out there with planets, that these planets were there so that they could get dragged off out of their orbits and slung off into outer space, why don't we see all these solar systems now? Where are all the other ones?
Good grief, Nephi, you are so stupid. Where are all the solar systems? Really? Really? You can't possibly be that... Just scratch that, I've watched your videos, you are that dumb. Allow me to introduce you to the Milky Way galaxy. This is where we live. It consists of anywhere between 200 and 400 billion, count them, billion stars. Each one of these stars has the potential to have planets around it. Anywhere from 1 to God knows how many. That's a lot of planets. So let's say on average they have about 5. Yeah? 5. And let's say on average, well, let's take a rough estimate of 300 billion stars. That's 1.5 trillion stars. Oh, sorry, 1.5 trillion planets in total in our galaxy. 1.5 trillion using conservative guesswork. So there you go. There it is. There's all your stars. We live amongst them, Nephi. Amongst them. We are their brethren. Between 200 and 400 billion stars. We can see them quite clearly. Obviously, with your thick-rimmed glasses, when you go outside at night and you look up, you only see the light from your own eyes shining.
Because they've only located what they believe to be a handful of solar systems in the universe. So where are these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands and millions of them? They say this adds up to hundreds of billions of lone planets. Well, where's the hundreds of billions of solar systems that were slung off from? You see, their wacky theories to explain things away don't make any sense at all. They have nothing to support their idea. All we know is this. The planets are there, they're free-floating, and it's likely there's a whole lot of them. So how do they explain them away? They got slung out of their solar systems, which don't exist. We can't find them. Interesting, isn't it? Holes, holes, holes.
Make it stop! Oh, make it stop!
Theories that don't work and have no support. But hey, God didn't create anything, Right? Till next time.
So, there you have it. I do apologise. I began losing hope towards the end there. My mind was about ready to implode under the sheer weight of stupid that it was being subjected to. This is the first Nephilim-free video I've actually watched from beginning to end, and now I understand why I avoided doing that in the first place. Some interesting things to note, however, and one of these things being, and one thing Nephilim fails to tell anybody, is that a majority of these rogue planets are actually brown dwarfs. Failed stars that are wandering around out there. It's in that article that he's referencing at the beginning of his video, in fact. Secondly, his video title is incorrect. An exoplanet is a planet found around a neighbouring star, or an alien star, a star not our own. So, exoplanet is the incorrect term to use to describe these planets that have no star of their own. Rogue planet, or free-floating planet, are the correct terms. Anyway, that's it from me for now. I am going to go and read a book. Yeah. If you like what you've seen, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and please leave a comment below. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to see me debunk, if I am able to do so, I will do so. Again, please leave it in the comments below. Or send me a message. Anyway, I'll speak to you all later. Bye-bye now. There is no accretion disk after a star explodes, but there may well be a nebula. It's called a supernova remnant. Lots of gas and dust, you know, from an exploding star and the planets that it destroys. And I don't know if you've taken a look around, Neph, but our star looks pretty intact and unexploded to me.
It's coalesced into a disk-like mass, and this coalesced then into planets orbiting the center remnant of that exploded star. And this is how our solar system formed.
What? Hang on. Right, so let me get this straight, Nephi, Sporty. You believe that a star explodes, an accretion disk forms, and then planets form, and they're not these uniform clouds. They have denser regions, they have light regions, they have currents, they have eddies. Okay? Now what happens is, one of these denser regions will start to undergo gravitational collapse, because the area in that area, the pressure has become so high in one region that it starts collapsing in on itself. And this collapse means that its mass increases, and this means that its gravity increases, which means it pulls in more material from the surrounding area. And this goes on and on and on and on and on until it reaches a critical mass. At that point, that super dense region of this nebula begins to fuse hydrogen atoms together, which sets off a chain reaction which gives birth to a star. Now, during this process, a spin or rotation is imparted to this dense area of gas, which creates the accretion disk around the star. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, or even good morning, depending upon where you are. Today we will be looking at a video by a very well-known YouTube young Earth creationist about the name of Nephilimfrees, who recently released a video entitled Exoplanets. Now, my plan is to kind of go through this video and try and correct the mistakes that Nephi made, and there's so many of them. So many of them. Now, this is going to be a very painful process, and I do apologise to all of you in advance, and I hope that you will bear with me as I pick apart his garbage one step at a time.
Well, the more we learn about
around the remnants of the exploded star somehow. Well, apart from that method of stellar and solar system formation being a perfect reason for there being so many rogue planets out there, it's completely incorrect. Let me educate you. We are now going to go back to high school Nephilimfree and we are going to do Astronomy 101. This is a nebula. This particular nebula is the Eagle Nebula. Very beautiful, isn't it? Each one of those little pink dots is a star. I can't see any exploded ones there, but trust me, when you see an exploded star, you'll know it. They're kind of hard to miss. These nebula are made up of gases, hydrogen mostly, and there's lots of dust in there as well.
Our universe, the more we find that the secular theories about how stars formed, how galaxies exist and how they formed, and how our solar system formed and why it exists, are just a huge package of just so stories that don't work. Here's an article from NASA talking about rogue planets. Guess what they've discovered? They think free-floating planets may be more common than stars. Now, the secular camp's theory about how our solar system and how planets form has long been established. They believe that an accretion disk left behind by an exploding star...
Oh, hang on a second there, Nephi. I hate to break it to you, but solar systems are not produced by exploding stars. I'm afraid that they're